Imagine, what if the end of humanity didn't come from war, famine, or disease, but from the cold, unfeeling void of space? For centuries we gazed at the stars, searching for signs of life. We sent probes, radio signals, desperate messages, into the dark, hoping for an answer. But what if the universe was never silent? What if someone had been listening all along, and now they are here? It began with a whisper, a signal buried in the cosmic noise, an anomaly detected by deep space observatories. At first, no one understood what it meant. It was dismissed as background radiation, a glitch in the data. But some scientists knew better. The pattern was too structured, too deliberate. Then came the disappearances. Probes sent to investigate the Kuiper Belt simply vanished. Long-range satellites designed to monitor the outer planets fell silent, their signals cutting off mid-transmission. Something was out there, moving in the darkness beyond Neptune, and it was coming closer. The first undeniable proof arrived when the Jameson Array, a high-orbit telescope stationed beyond the Moon, captured a disturbing image. The stars themselves were disappearing. Not a natural phenomenon, not an eclipse, but an object so immense that it was blotting out entire sections of space. It was approaching our solar system. By the time Earth's governments realized the truth, it was already too late. The object was not a single vessel. It was a construct, a superstructure, a city the size of a planet, yet it moved with precision, directed by an intelligence beyond human comprehension. The invaders had arrived. Earth's greatest minds worked tirelessly to decipher the nature of this behemoth. Was it a fleet, a weapon, a cosmic ark carrying an alien civilization? Every attempt to make contact was met with silence. And then, on a cold, moonless night, the first attack began. The skies above Jupiter burned as Europa Station, humanity's largest deep space colony, was reduced to ash in an instant. No beam of light, no traceable energy weapon. One moment, it was there, and the next it was gone. Mars's orbital defense grid responded immediately, launching its full nuclear arsenal toward the approaching threat. The warhead streaked through space, detonating in blinding flashes. But when the light faded, the construct remained untouched. It had absorbed the blasts like they were nothing more than fireflies against a hurricane. Panic swept across the solar system. The United Nations Space Command convened an emergency summit activating every defense protocol known to humanity. But the truth was clear. We were outmatched. The enemy's technology was incomprehensible. Their ships defied the laws of physics, moving in ways that suggested mastery over gravity, inertia, even time itself. Humanity's most advanced warships, massive dreadnoughts equipped with railguns and plasma weaponry, were annihilated in seconds. And then came the most horrifying revelation. This wasn't the first time, buried deep in the classified archives, of Earth's most secretive institutions were fragmented records, accounts of an ancient war, one that had taken place long before the rise of human civilization. Ruins beneath Antarctica, deep-sea anomalies, ancient texts encrypted in languages, predating Sumeria, all pointed to a past conflict between Earth and an unknown force. A war humanity had already fought and lost. But if humanity had been defeated before, why were we still here? The answer lay in a single word found across these lost records, a name whispered in forbidden texts, buried within the genetic code of our own species, a name that terrified even those who uncovered it. Eschaton. What was Eschaton? A weapon, a savior? Or something far worse, and more importantly, did it still exist? Before we jump into this epic tale, subscribe to XenoChronicles for the most intense sci-fi battles, legendary warriors, and universe-shaking wars. Don't miss out. Hit that subscribe button and join the fight, because the battle for Earth's survival is only beginning. The warning came too late. By the time humanity fully grasped the nature of the invasion, the battle had already begun. The construct, now designated Leviathan by military strategists, had bypassed conventional planetary defenses, phasing through space in ways that defied every known law of physics. It wasn't just moving, it was warping reality itself, and then it spoke. Not in words, not in a language we could decipher, but in an overwhelming, all-consuming signal that flooded every communication channel, every electronic device, every human mind, attuned to even the slightest electromagnetic disturbance. A pulsating, rhythmic pattern, a code buried within the fabric of space-time itself. For those who listened, it was not a message, it was a command. Across Earth and its colonies, those exposed to the transmission fell into seizures, their bodies convulsing as if their very DNA was being rewritten. Scientists, soldiers, engineers. Some woke up screaming, others whispering ancient words that had never been spoken in human history. And then they turned. Entire research outposts fell silent. Stations orbiting Mars were overrun from within as crew members suddenly turned against one another, their eyes void black, their voices speaking in a harmonic, unnatural resonance. They had been changed. Earth's defenses were collapsing, not because of the enemy's superior firepower, but because the war was being fought in ways we didn't understand. And at the heart of it all, the name surfaced again, Eschaton. It was first identified in the archives of the oldest surviving human civilizations, but now it was appearing in encrypted military transmissions embedded within signals, emitted by the invaders themselves, as if humanity's ancient past and its impending doom were intertwined. The remaining factions of Earth's leadership were forced into an impossible choice. Attempt communication, despite the obvious dangers of exposure to the enemy's mind-altering signals. Unleash every weapon in the arsenal, from planetary railguns to antimatter warheads, despite knowing they wouldn't be enough, or search for Eschaton, whatever it was, before it was too late. The decision was made. A covert operation was assembled, an elite strike team composed of soldiers, scientists and historians who had spent their lives studying the fragments of Earth's forgotten past. Their mission: locate Eschaton before the invaders reached Earth. Their only lead: a cryptic set of coordinates found buried in the ruins beneath Antarctica. Beneath the ice that lay something ancient, something not of this world. As the team descended into the frozen abyss, drilling through miles of ice, they found structures that should not have existed, vast metallic halls untouched by time-alien glyphs pulsating with an eerie rhythmic glow. And at the center of it all, a massive sealed chamber. The walls were inscribed with a warning, "Do not awaken it," but Earth was already burning. The skies were filled with fire, and the void beyond was swallowing what little hope remained. There was no other choice. They opened the chamber, and the moment they did, something woke up. The air inside the chamber was deathly still. For millennia, the structure had remained untouched, entombed beneath miles of ice, its existence a secret lost to time. Now, under the flickering glow of their helmet lights, the strike team stepped into the unknown. The walls pulsed with an eerie, rhythmic luminescence, like the slow heartbeat of something that should not be awake. Alien glyphs lined the vast chamber, stretching impossibly far into the darkness. The inscriptions weren't just written, they were moving, shifting and rearranging themselves as if responding to their presence. Then, the silence broke. Low, resonant hum vibrated through the chamber. The ice cracked, spiderweb fractures racing up the walls. A sudden gravitational shift pulled the team downward, dragging them toward the center of the structure. And there, in the heart of the abyss, they saw it. Eschaton. A monolithic construct, not a machine, not a weapon, but something far older. Its surface was neither metal nor stone, but a material that defied classification, absorbing light, yet radiating a darkness that seemed alive. Dr. Klein, the team's lead scientist, whispered in awe, "It's not just ancient, it's pre-human." The realization hit like a shockwave. This was not something built by humanity. It had been left for humanity. Then the whispers began. Not from the radios, not from their suits, from inside their heads. "We are the last. We are the first. We are the fallen. We are the ascended." The team staggered back, gripping their helmets as the words burrowed into their minds. It wasn't just a voice. It was a presence, a memory carried across time, echoing through the very atoms of the chamber. It was then that they saw the bodies, encased in a crystalline substance, Humanoid figures lay in perfect preservation, their features almost human, almost, but their proportions were subtly different, their eyes larger, their limbs elongated, their very structure radiating an unsettling familiarity. God, one of the soldiers breathed. They looked like us, but they weren't. These were the precursors, the ones who came before, and judging by the frozen horror on their faces, they had died in agony. Suddenly the glyphs flared, a violent pulse of blinding red light. The hum escalated into a deafening, inhuman screech. The chamber awoke. A figure rose from the darkness. It wasn't flesh. It wasn't machine. It was Eschaton itself, a shifting, amorphous form rippling between thousands of possible shapes, as if it had no true form, only echoes of what it had once been. Then it spoke. You have awakened the last hope of your kind. The team stood frozen, their minds struggling to process what they were seeing. Your enemy returns as it always has, as it always will. You stand where the first stood. You face the end, as they did. Dr. Klein stepped forward. The first? You mean the ones before us? The ones who built this? Eschaton shifted, flickering through forms, some resembling the bodies in the crystal, others unfathomable, alien, monstrous. No, we did not build this. We were made for this. A sickening realization dawned on the team. Eschaton wasn't a weapon. It was a being, a construct created by an unknown force, a final fail-safe against the annihilation of entire civilizations. It had been left behind, buried in ice, awaiting the return of the enemy that had ended the first. And now, it was humanity's turn. Outside, the war was reaching its breaking point. The skies of Earth burned. The last of humanity's defenses crumbled as Leviathan descended, its impossible form stretching across the heavens. It was no longer just an invasion. It was erasure, and deep within the chamber, as the team struggled to comprehend what they had unleashed, Eschaton turned its gaze toward them. Your kind was never meant to survive. Yet here you are. Perhaps you will do what the first could not. The chamber shook. The ice groaned as ancient mechanisms reawakened. And in that moment, the team realized the terrible truth. Eschaton was not an ally. It was a force of nature, a weapon forged in a war so ancient that history itself had forgotten it. It did not care for humanity's survival, only that the cycle continued. And now, the final battle was about to begin. Earth was dying. The sky burned as Leviathan descended, its massive form blotting out the stars. Cities crumbled beneath gravitational distortions that defied physics. Weapons, satellites, entire fleets, nothing could stop it. But deep beneath Antarctica, something had awakened. Eschaton stirred, its amorphous form shifting through time-worn echoes of what it had once been. It was not an ally, not a savior. It was a force ancient beyond measure, bound to a singular purpose. The cycle must continue. The strike team stood frozen, barely comprehending the magnitude of the being before them. Dr. Klein's voice trembled. The cycle? What cycle? Eschaton's form flickered, 1,000 faces, 1,000 voices layered as one. The first believed they could break it. So did the ones before them, and the ones before them. They were wrong. The weight of the words crushed down on them. Humanity was not the first. The Leviathan had come before, again and again. And every time a civilization had risen, fought and fallen, Eschaton was not just a remnant of the first. It was the last survivor of every civilization that had ever stood against the invaders. A gravekeeper, a witness to extinction. And now, it had awoken to watch humanity's final moments. Above ground, the end had begun. Across the planet, the last human forces launched their final stand. Massive planetary railguns fired at Leviathan's impossible form. Nuclear warheads detonated in the upper atmosphere, their blinding flashes illuminating the horror descending upon them. But Leviathan was not a vessel, not a fleet. It was something greater. It absorbed everything, light, energy, matter itself. It did not conquer, it erased, and in the face of that, Humanity's weapons meant nothing, but there was still one last card to play. Dr. Klein turned to Eschaton. If the cycle is doomed to repeat, why are you here? Why do you still exist? Eschaton hesitated. The flickering of its form slowed. I was made to witness. I was made to remember. Klein took a step closer, desperate, furious. But you haven't just watched, have you? You've survived. You're still here. A beat of silence. Then something changed. For the first time, in millennia, Eschaton's form stabilized. Yes, the realization hit like a supernova. Eschaton had not been a passive observer. It had endured, it had adapted, and it had learned. The past civilizations had fallen not because they were weak, but because they had fought the same battle. In the same way, every time. The cycle only existed because the enemy had never encountered anything new, and now humanity was different. For the first time, a species had reawakened Eschaton before the end. For the first time, a species had asked the right question. Klein's voice was barely a whisper. Then help us break the cycle. Eschaton turned its gaze toward the surface. Above them, the sky was falling. The last human strongholds vanished in waves of unmaking. The final moments had come, and then, for the first time in untold ages, Eschaton chose to act. The chamber exploded in light. The ice collapsed as Eschaton's form ascended, ripping through time and space itself, no longer a dormant relic, but a force unleashed. And for the first time, Leviathan hesitated. The void-born horror shifted, sensing something new, something it had never faced before. Eschaton rose into the burning heavens, its form expanding, no longer bound to a singular shape, but an ever-changing cascade of pure, boundless possibility. A clash beyond human comprehension ignited. Reality bent. Stars flickered and died. The air itself vibrated with a sound no living being should hear. The battlefield was no longer Earth, it was existence itself. And then there was silence. The dust settled. The sky, once burning, became still. The Leviathan was gone. And so was Eschaton. Humanity had survived, but not because they had won, because they had changed the battle itself, because for the first time the cycle had been broken, or had it. As the survivors emerged from the ruins of their world, a final transmission echoed across the stars. A signal, not from Eschaton, not from Leviathan, but from something else. Something that had been watching. They did it. They broke the pattern. It begins again. But this time it will not be the same. And that is where our story ends. Or does it? The war may be over, but the question remains, what was truly watching from the shadows? Could Eschaton return? Could Leviathan? Or was this battle merely the opening move in something far, far greater? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more epic sci-fi battles, legendary warriors, and universe-shaking mysteries, subscribe to XenoChronicles and join the fight, because one thing is certain, the war is far from over.